Hello again, welcome back to the garage. This week I'm going to look at putting new blades into this Titan planer thicknesser. Now it shouldn't need doing very often unless you've done something like me and you've planed a little bit of wood that's got a nail in it and taken a big chunk out, so you can see in here. Now first things first, I've brought it down onto a place where I can work on it, and I've unplugged it, so it's unplugged from the mains. Never try and do this with it plugged in, just in case. You did. What would happen would be too horrible to think about if it suddenly started while you've got a spanner in it. And the first thing I'm going to do is take off this guard because it can get in the way, and it's really quite easy. You get an Allen key and there's two little bolts in the back, and you can just undo it and take that off. And this is also, while it's all sort of broken down, it's a good time to get a brush and give it all a good sweep to make sure it's clean. Now obviously you don't need to do that because you've been looking after it, haven't you? And you've not been letting dirt accumulate in it. I went along to Screwfix and I got the cheapest blades I could find for it. Bauer. So they come in a cardboard box, and inside is like a yellow blade container, and there's the blades and some polythene packaging inside. Now inside these things there are two sets of blades at 180 degrees to each other. So we do one, flip it over, and then we'll do the other one. And before we go any further, you're going to need to find this thing. So this is the thing that came with it that you wondered what it was, and you put it on a shelf somewhere and now it's disappeared. So you're going to go and find that before we go any further. And this is a tool for setting the blades. And what happens is it fits flat onto there, and you can see it's got a curved edge, so the blade can fit against that curved edge. You put this in place, and it doesn't matter how much you turn this disc, turn this drum, the blades stay in contact with that. And therefore when I'm trying to set the blade, I set this, and wherever the drum is, it can be quite a way out, this will press the blade down to the right amount. So really you can't do it without this, so go and find it. Now I'm zooming you in here, and you can see we've got the blade along here, trying to run my finger along it, and a whole series of little nuts that you need to undo, and that will release the blade. This thing here, this black bit, holds the blade in place, and you can take the little spanner that came with it if you still got it, and you can undo those. There we go, one at a time, so that they're all just loosened. And what we're actually doing here, these are actually little bolts that go into here. So as you screw the bolt in, it releases this, so this can pull forwards a bit. This is kind of a rubbery stuff, and that will in turn mean the blade comes loose. You can see it's already loose. It's not quite loose enough to get it out, but I'll keep taking more and more off these, so screwing them essentially more and more into the rubber, and eventually that will allow me to pop the blade out. So here we go, they're all loosened now, and you find that whole thing comes out in one. So there's the rubber thing. Keep it the way up that it came out, so don't be twisting and turning it because you want it to go back in again. Then the blade is just here, and again that just lifts out. Now keep the blade as it is and have a look at it, and you'll see that the chamfer on the blade goes that way, okay, because you want to replace the new one in exactly the same way. And once the blade's out, you'll see that there are two little springs, one there and one there. Do not lose those, they will come out, okay, so they're quite long. You can put them there, and then we can then clean out that channel with a brush or a little bit of cloth just to make sure it's all cleaned out. Now installation obviously is the reversal of taking it out. So I'm going to take the little springs first of all, which have not been allowed to ping off onto the floor, and we put them back in the hole to make sure they're seated properly. They go in quite a long way, just leaving the top end protruding. And then we take the new blades. Now the new blades are covered in horrible oily stuff that we don't want everywhere, so carefully taking it out, and what I'm going to do is clean it with this cloth. Now, these have kept them from going rusty while they sit in packaging, but I do not want oil and horribleness all over me and all over the stuff that I am cutting. Now you can go to extremes and you can get some solvent on that of some sort, but I never bother. A good clean with the cloth and we're good to go. Now putting the blade back in again, I'll put the 2 springs in. So notice on the black bit, keeping it the same way up, there are 2 lugs on the back, and those are the lugs that this thing fits into. So those should line up with there, and that'll clip in like that, and then the blade can go up and down relative to that. That then goes back in on top of the springs, being careful not to knock the springs out of place, like that, and the whole thing can bounce up and down. Okay, so we'll centralise it, because again, when I switch it on, I don't want it to take chunks out of the side. So it's nicely in the centre, everything's lined up. You can then go and grab the tool and line it up. So the first thing I'm going to do is just tighten up these nuts, these bolts. So in fact what I'm doing is I'm kind of loosening them. I'm going to do that until they just start to catch on the sides so that I can tighten them up. It's just so they're just touching, but they're not exerting any pressure. So I'm at the point now where they are just starting to get tight, so I can get the tool. That goes in there, and it's got like little, it's got sort of a little ridge, and that fits on the back end, of this plate, if you like. So I'll push it down, and that will push the. So that's pushed down, and we're keeping that flat onto the thing, and that in turn will make sure the blade doesn't go any higher than it should. So that's just right, and we're pressing them both down, don't let them move. We can start to do up some of these. I'll just do up a couple, and that should then hold the whole thing in place. There's 2. I'll do these end ones as well. Okay, and when I release that, it should no longer spring back out again, which it isn't. Now I can just carefully go around, tighten up all the rest, and we should be ready to go. And the final tighten, I want to tighten them reasonably because I don't want the thing flying out, but I don't want to put so much pressure on them that I strip the threads. So just go around. It should just be a good sort of pull on it, and they should all feel about the same. And that's good. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to double check it again with this. Just look along it and just make sure that the blade is touching all the way along, and that these aren't being raised up at all. So make sure that it hasn't moved while I've been tightening any of those. And that looks perfect. So we're ready to try it out, but before we do, what I'm going to do is go it round by hand once, just to make sure it's not catching on anything. Better to find that out while it's by hand, rather than to put all the power through it and find it shredding something. And that's going round pretty well. Now be careful not to get mixed up. So you've got to have to do the second one now. And you don't want to be doing the second one and accidentally replacing the first one twice. Sort of thing I usually do. Okay, so that's done. All we need to do now is put the guards back on, and then we can try it out. Okay, so both blades are now replaced. I'll take the old ones and I'll put them back in here so they're nice and safe, and we can dispose of them responsibly rather than letting children and animals play with them. And I'm putting the fence back on as well. I want to make sure the fence doesn't interfere. If I've got them too far over, I don't want the blades hitting the fence. So just do those up. The opposite of taking it off. Okay, and then we can spin this round. and just make sure again that it's not fouling on anything. And that looks good. Well, there's quite a big gap, so hopefully it wouldn't. Okay, ready to turn it on and try it out. Now ready for the first test. The first thing I'm going to do when I first set it off, I'm going to set it off with a guard on top just in case anything does let go, and that way it'll protect me from getting a piece of blade in my head. Right, so here we go. Okay, so that's running okay, nothing flew off, so we can now open up the guard. I've just got a bit of old wood to try it out on. So on with the dust extraction and let's see if it works. And actually, you know what, that seems to be working better than it has done before. It seemed to be quieter as well. It's given us a nice smooth bit of planing. Yeah, happy with that, ready to go. Hopefully that was useful. Maybe I'll see you next time, and don't forget to press the subscribe button.